I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We need to elect a presiding officer for this meeting as our mayor and deputy mayor are absent. So I will call that motion and then transfer it over to the presiding officer. Can I get a mover and seconder to elect Councillor Aquilina as the chair of the meeting? Moved by Councillor Danch, seconded by Councillor Bruno. That Councillor Aquilina be appointed chair for the public meeting dated August 19th, 2025. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. In the audience? No? Okay. Yeah? Okay. So we're going to the adoption of the agenda. So can I please get a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Bruno and seconded by Councillor Danch, that the public meeting agenda dated August 19th, 2025 be confirmed as amended. Are there any disclosures of interest? I see none. So that's carried.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Tonight there are two public meetings for two properties. 4.1, public meeting report for proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 70 Nickel Street, file D14-01-25, 2025-144. I would like to open the public meeting for Nickel Street. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get the report on the floor? Okay. Moved by Councillor Danch and seconded by Councillor Bogart. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to planning staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This public meeting is a requirement of the Planning Act to address an application for an amendment to the zoning bylaw. In accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, notice must be given at least 20 days before the public meeting is held. Notice of the public meeting was circulated on July 28th, 2025 to internal departments and agencies. Notice was also circulated via regular mail on July 10th, 2025 to property owners within 120 meters. A report was prepared to summarize the details of the proposal, which was published on the city's website with the agenda for this public meeting. The materials submitted with the application are posted on the current application's webpage. The city's public notice sign was also posted on the frontages of the property. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the City of Port Colborne on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the City of Port Colborne via the city clerk. Sign-in sheets are available at the back of council chambers for this purpose. Please fill in your name and contact information if you would like to receive a copy of the written notice of decision on the zoning bylaw amendment being considered at this meeting. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of this meeting is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Land Pro Planning Solutions on behalf of their client who is proposing to purchase property from the City of Port Colborne for the lands municipally known as 70 Nickel Street. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to amend the existing site-specific zoning provision, being a special provision of the 4th Density Residential Zone, or R4-81, to allow the property to be used exclusively as a parking lot. The procedure to be followed this evening will be as follows. Planning staff will present Development and Government Relations Department Report 2025-144, followed by the applicant outlining their proposal. Council will then have an opportunity to request clarification and ask questions of both parties. The public will then be provided with an opportunity to provide comments. At this time, I would like to present Development and Government Relations Department Public Hearing Report 2025-144. Give me one moment. Trusting we can all see that. The subject lands are located north of Nickel Street, east of Mitchell Street, south of 163 Mitchell Street, and west of 72 Nickel Street. The lands are municipally known as 70 Nickel Street and legally known as Lot 26 on Plan 19, New Plan 857 in the city of Port Colborne within the regional municipality of Niagara. The lands measure approximately 7.6 meters in frontage along Nickel Street and 239 square meters in area. The subject lands are designated medium-density urban neighborhood in the East Waterfront Secondary Plan area as mapped on Schedule F of the City of Port Colborne Official Plan. Residential land uses are permitted in this designation, which includes parking areas that serve those residential uses. The subject lands are currently in a special provision of the 4th Density Residential Zone, again the R4-81 zone. The application for a zoning bylaw amendment proposes to amend the existing site-specific zoning provision to add parking lot as a permitted primary use of this property. As of the date of this meeting, staff have received the following comments from the following commenting departments or agencies. The fire department had no objections to the proposed zoning amendment. Neither did the Niagara Region's Infrastructure Planning and Development Engineering, nor Enbridge, nor the Drainage Superintendent. The Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations did not propose the zoning bylaw amendment as well. Any other written comments received with respect to this application will be included in the future recommendation report. Are there any questions of clarification at this time from council?
Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just through you to the planner, the only thing I noticed from a grammatical point of view that had a concern for me, I don't know if it's a mistype or if it's because this is a conditional sale. In the paragraph about purpose, it reads, the purpose is report to provide council with information, provide an opportunity for public comment for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment. But the lands municipally known as 70 Nickel Street, in brackets, submitted by Land Pro Planning Solutions, Inc., on behalf of the owner, the city of Port Colborne. I'm just wondering if you could explain that. We haven't contracted them. That's question one. And B, is that effectively because we still own it until there's a sale?
Through the acting mayor, acting deputy mayor to the councillor. Land Pro Solutions has been retained by the purchaser, proposed purchaser of the land. And as I understand, there's a condition of sale, being that the sale would be completed if the rezoning was successful on the property.
Right.
So the city has not directly engaged the services of Land Pro, but rather we have given them the authority to act as an agent on behalf of the property.
Okay. Yeah. So they are acting as an agent, but not
On an agent,
engaged.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Any other comments online or? Councillor Bodnar?
Yes, thank you. Is there any way you can turn the volume up on your end? It was good and then it kind of dropped. I could hear Councillor Bruno.
Can you hear me now?
The chair. but I can hear whoever else was speaking.
Are you talking planning staff or myself?
Now I can hear you, but I
Through,
started out good and then it just dropped off and then now it seems to be back. I just wondered whether there was any,
I'll just say something to the
Yeah,
deputy mayor. That works?
that sounds good.
Okay.
I'll, sorry, just the deputy mayor to test my mic as well. Counselor Bodnar, can you hear me as well?
Yeah, you're kind of weak, but I can hear it.
Noted.
Thank you, Councillor Bodnar. We'll make note of that going forward. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not sure if this is appropriate right now, but I'll throw it out there, and if it needs to come after. Like, is the developer making a presentation? Okay. I think this is really more of a planning staff question. So I know we've all dealt a lot with this particular lot, and I like the idea that it helps leverage making the apartment happen. With respect to that, the lot for sale, in and unto itself, is it a legal building lot?
Through deputy mayor to the councillor. Yes, it is. It is consistent with other lots. There are lots that size in that neighborhood with existing homes on them. It would be possible to put a house on this. It may be a challenge to meet all the setback requirements now, but I think you could still work through a variance process if one was so inclined and had a bit of an open idea for how you may design something. But it is possible it could be a building lot, yeah.
The reason for me asking that question is not so much for tonight and to make this potentially possible, but down the road, the applicant needs this to make the parking issue work for his building. So down the road, 2 owners from now, 20 years from now, is that parking lot going to be attached like on title? I mean, I could just imagine that what happens down the road when somebody says who owns the building, I want to build a house there or come back to the council of the day or there's a bankruptcy or something like that. You get the parking permission to build your building. And then once you get to build your building and you're occupied, you throw caution to the wind and see if that can become a lot. Is there anything that we would put in now that would bind as much as possible those two? Because, well, 2 things. I suppose one is we're not selling it as a building lot, but more important, and a price rise, but more importantly is I wouldn't want to see that neighborhood have, 12 cars parked on the street 24/7 because there's no longer a parking lot.
So through the deputy mayor to the councillor, I believe in this instance, the lot is providing parking for 4 or 5 that can't be accommodated at the 174. Initially, the idea was that we would put both properties under site plan control and we would tie the parking lot to the 174 property through site plan. However, the province, as you're aware, changed the site plan policies on us or regulations on us, and we can no longer site plan the building at 174 Mitchell. So we've had some discussions around other methods that we may use to ensure that this stays in place as parking. And one of those is the fact that we're zoning this exclusively for parking use. So for this to become a building lot in the future, it would need to come back to council and it would need to be zoned to permit residential development in the form of some form of housing. And the fact that it's a special zone, it's a R4-81, it's a specific zone to that property, so there would be details associated with that zoning indicating why it is zoned as it is as a parking lot and its connection to the 174 Mitchell Street. That said, it could be sold separately. There's nothing that on title is going to tie it to the other property. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Any other comments from council?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. At this time, I'd like to pass the floor to the applicant to summarize their proposal.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mike Sullivan with Land Pro Planning Solutions, and staff did a great presentation there. I don't want to add to this too much, just to highlight a few points. The application is to add parking as a permitted use in order to allow the 10 units to be built at 174 Mitchell. And we've looked at several different off-street parking options. In this property, we've had an engineer involved to try to configure it properly, and this option was the most efficient. So it's because of the size of the lot, it's the most efficient way to develop it. And I think that's really it. It's a straightforward application from my perspective. To answer the councillor's question from before, planning staff and I sat down earlier this year and tried to come up with some solutions for the lot. It's very limited. So thank you. I'm here for any questions.
Councillor Dant?
Sorry, I'm just looking at the diagram here. You said 174 Mitchell?
Yes, I believe that's the correct address.
I know my numbers. I don't see 174 Mitchell on this.
It's on the west side of Mitchell Street, councillor, just north of the subject property.
Oh, it's up higher.
The former bakery, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to open up to members of the audience here. Is there anybody who would like to speak to this application that's present? No? Do we have anybody online? Okay. Okay, since there's nobody in the audience that would like to speak, and the presentations are now over, I'm going to read that the Development and Government Relations Department Report 2025-144 be received for information. Can I have a vote? All in favor? Sorry. Councillor Bodnar, do you have a question or are you voting? You're voting? Okay. It's hard to see you. You're so small. Okay, thank you. So that was 4 all in favors? Okay. So that was carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The public meeting for 70 Nickel Street is officially closed. If you have any other comments, please direct them to the clerk's division, and their email address is cityclerk@portcolborne.ca. We'll now move on to 4.2 of the agenda, public meeting report for proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 484 Barrack Road, file D14-12-24, 2025-144 is the report number. So I'll like to open up the public meeting for 484 Barrack Road. If I can get a mover and a seconder for those. Councillor Beauregard has moved, and Councillor Bruno as second. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to planning.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This public meeting is a requirement of the Planning Act to address an application for an amendment to the zoning bylaw. In accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, notice must be given at least 20 days before a public meeting is held. Notice of the public meeting was circulated on July 28, 2025 to internal departments and agencies. Notice was also circulated via regular mail on July 10, 2025 to property owners within 120 meters. A report was prepared to summarize the details of the proposal, which was published on the city's website with the agenda for this public meeting. The materials submitted with the application are posted on the current application's webpage. The applicant also posted the city's public notice sign on the frontage of the property. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the City of Port Colborne on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the City of Port Colborne via the city clerk. Sign-in sheets are available at the back of council chambers for this purpose. Please fill in your name and contact information if you would like to receive a copy of the written notice of decision on the zoning bylaw amendment being considered at this meeting. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of this meeting is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Nethery Planning on behalf of the property owners, the trustees of Christian Life Assembly, for the lands municipally known as 484 Barrack Road. The application for zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning from institutional to a special provision of the institutional zone to permit a severance for future residential purposes. The procedure to be followed this evening will be as follows. Planning staff will present Development and Government Relations Department Report 2025-145, followed by the applicant outlining their proposal. Council will then have an opportunity to request clarification and ask questions of both parties. The public will then be provided with opportunity to provide comments. At this time, I would like to present Development and Government Relations Department Report 2025-145 to begin this public meeting. And pardon me for 1 second. The subject lands are located south of Barrack Road, east of West Side Road, north of properties fronting along Northland Avenue, and west of properties fronting along Steele Street. The subject lands are legally known as Concession 2, part of Lot 30, being part of Part 1 on Plan 59R-1756 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 484 Barrack Road. The lands measure approximately 99.3 meters in frontage along Barrack Road and 19.42 acres, or about 7.86 hectares in area. The subject lands are in the urban residential designation in the City of Port Colborne's official plan. Land uses in the urban residential designation permit residential uses, neighborhood commercial uses, cemeteries, parks, schools, community facilities, and institutional uses normally located in residential areas. The subject lands are currently in the institutional zone. The zoning bylaw amendment application proposes to rezone the subject lands to a site-specific institutional zone to permit the future severance of the lands. As of the date of this meeting, staff have received comments from the following commenting departments and agencies. The Fire Department has no objections, nor does the Niagara Region Infrastructure Planning and Development Engineering, nor does Enbridge, nor the Drainage Superintendent. The Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations have no objections to the proposed zoning amendment in principle, but requested at minimum a Stage 1 archaeological assessment with a ministry acknowledgement letter. Any other written comments received with respect to this application will be included in the future recommendation report. Thank you for this time, Deputy Mayor. Are there any questions of clarification from Council at this time?
Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to the planners. So right now, it is institutional, but they want to rezone for consent for potential residential use. But they haven't indicated the level of residential development. So does that, if you just go to residential, is that just defaulted to R1?
Through the Deputy Mayor, no, it would rezone to residential development, which would require a future zoning amendment to set the parameters around what the building type would be. So this is not necessarily the ultimate zoning for the site. It would need to be a plan to support future specific zoning for the property, whether that's going to be R2, R3, R4, with details and supporting studies that would sort of complement whatever the desired zoning is. I maybe when the applicant is up, it may be something we can also clarify with them in terms of what they're ultimately headed towards for development on this site. But for the purpose of the consent, we are requiring that the piece to be severed is identified as residential development separate from the institutional zone.
Thank you, I'll do that. The other thing I noticed here, so just from what's on it, Mississaugas of the Credit have requested a archaeological assessment, at minimum a Stage 1. So is that request something that's will be decided when you come back with your report? Is it something that I, as a member of the committee, can ask for at this point? Because if it is, I'd like to. And secondly, I don't see anything in here about a traffic study that may be being brought forward by members of the public. But I guess I just wanted to get it out there that it was noted for the record, so that you're digesting it and coming back with that. And I'm sure the public will have some more comments on that.
Yeah, through the Deputy Mayor to the Councillor. At the pre-consultation we had for this property and this development, both archaeological study and transportation studies were requested as supporting documents. So tonight, for the purpose of this rezoning, we'll likely be exploring, when we head to recommendation report, either a holding provision in place, or we would be looking for the completion of those studies to support a recommendation moving forward. But yeah, archaeology was something that the city requested as well, based on the region's archaeological potential mapping, identifying this site as an area of archaeological potential.
Further to that, there's rightfully the proponent can put forward either what lands it holds today or what lands it wants rezoned tonight. That's the purpose of this application. But I've been made aware of that the applicant may be purchasing a lot on Barrack Road, a housing lot, in order to give it a entrance to the lands outlined in red. And I don't see where in his rezoning application, he showed a red line through to Barrack Road. And I'm just wondering if you can comment on that. Is it because he's changing institutional, and if he buys a lot on Barrack Road, he doesn't have to change the zoning?
Through the deputy mayor to the councillor, yes, that's correct. As we understand, the proposed lot that would be used to access this is currently zoned residential third density, so it has an R3 zoning in place right now. And that zoning would stand going forward if those lots were merged. I suspect that if a future zoning amendment is to be made for this property that defines what the final use will be in terms of built form or housing type, that access property would be zoned accordingly with the balance of the site at the time. But for the purpose of the consent that they wish to proceed with, which is ultimately what's driving this zoning tonight, that property has, and the zoning of that property has no bearing on this application.
So just if you could take this one step further. So if any lot in Port Colborne is zoned residential and it backs onto a parcel of land, there's no, other than the site plan, there's no special process that has to go through to make a residential housing lot turn into a road. I don't know if I'm explaining that very clearly, but it just, I would have never guessed that you could, that to make something a road required more than this.
Through the deputy mayor to the councillor, I think what prevents that in most cases is that the city has design standards and right-of-way widths for roads and accesses. And oftentimes existing municipal lots or residential lots in the urban area, they aren't sufficient in frontage to be wide enough to put an access through. In the case of this property on Barrack Road, I think it does meet the width for the access requirements. And so it is able to be converted to be used for an access. So yeah, it is a bit of an anomaly, but it's not something that, it can happen. It can happen, and it is part of other applications we have around the city as well for other subdivisions where access is being provided by an applicant who's buying an existing lot or an existing commercial property and obtaining access by using that because it has frontage on a road where access is required.
I do have another couple, but they do pertain to the city, not really the developer. So obviously, this applicant wants to build some form of residential development on that land. I should have checked back, but I don't think so now. So at this stage that it's in, would that be a reason that, like, would the fire department and emergency services want more than one entrance on this, or does it go back to depending on what the ultimate use is or the numbers?
Through Deputy Mayor, it's going to come to what the ultimate use is. I think more often than not, we're seeing that the fire department would like a secondary access to sites. So that is something that will need to be considered, but really that's not going to come up until we see a proposal for what is going to happen with this site.
And I'm going to ask the developer this, but maybe I could get your take on it. Right now, it shows this as one parcel, but it talks about consent. And I've heard that the woodlot at the back may be retained by the church. And so does that not landlock that and how does, and maybe that lot can't get developed because it's wooded and we'll do a study and it says it can't be built on. But does it still, if it's severed, does it still need to have an access out to a road?
Through the deputy mayor to councilor, it's a good, that's a good observation, and an environmental impact study was done for that woodlot, and that's ultimately what is being used to define the lot line that will exist between the woodlot and the balance of the property to the north. And yes, it is something that we did raise with the applicant, the fact that the frontage of that woodlot exists on West Side Road, which is controlled by the Ministry of Transportation, who are not particularly fond of providing new access points on what they call a controlled access road. So I suspect that the applicant will have some challenges to overcome with respect to how they will provide an access to that site, because you are correct. It is going to need to have some form of access, even if it is a wood lot that will not be developed. It is going to need to have an access provided to it. Now, it may well be that they can satisfy that with an easement over the property to the north that they're purchasing, but it is something that the applicant is going to need to consider. I suspect we will, before a recommendation report is written, we will have comments back from the Ministry of Transportation somehow addressing that.
Okay, that's all for now. I'm sure others might have some questions. I might circle back. Thank you.
Councillor Bodnar or Beauregard, do you have any questions for the applicant? Or for planning, sorry? No? Okay, planning, you can continue.
At this time, Deputy Mayor, I would like to pass the floor to the applicant for a brief presentation. I will make the applicant a co-host and they will share their screen and present on their own, so bear with me. Denise, you should now be a co-host, so please feel free to share your screen when you can.
Great. Thank you so much, Diane, for that presentation. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Denise Landry, and I'm a principal planner with Nethery Planning. We were retained by Dunsire Properties to obtain a minor rezoning of the lands at 484 Barrack Road to facilitate 2 severances of the property. The property is located at the corner of Barrack Road and West Side Road and includes the existing church, vacant land behind the church, and a woodlot. There are single detached dwellings adjacent to the property located along Barrack Road. The purpose of the rezoning application is to establish minimum lot frontage and minimum lot area in order to facilitate 2 consent applications. The institutional zone in the city's zoning bylaw identifies the minimum lot frontage and lot area requirements as existing, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. This hinders the ability to seek consent approval to sever the parcel into 3 properties. We are requesting a minimum lot frontage of 50 meters and a minimum lot area of 1.2 hectares to align with our proposed severance applications. And you can see on the screen the proposed severance that we have put forward. These 2 applications have been filed with the city, and they are to create 2 additional lots with 3 lots in total. There'll be 1 property that will include the woodlot, The property in the middle, that'll be currently the vacant parcel that will be intended to be developed in the future, as well as parcel 1 with the existing church. The property is located within settlement area and the PPS and directs growth to these areas to promote efficient use of land and infrastructure. In the region's official plan, which remains in effect as the official plan for the city of Port Colborne, designates the lands as built-up area. These areas are intended to accommodate intensification with a target of 60% of new residential units to be located in the built-up area. The city's official plan supports growth in urban residential areas and permits the severance of lots for residential development. The lands are currently zoned institutional with lot frontage and lot area minimum requirements identified as existing in the city's zoning bylaw. The purpose is to introduce a minimum lot frontage of 50 meters and lot area of 1.2 hectares to support 2 severance applications. No changes are being proposed to the list of permitted uses. This application is intended to support future intensification of the vacant land. It supports key policy directions in the PPS, Niagara Official Plan, and the Port Colborne Official Plan. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council, for allowing me the opportunity to present an overview of the application for 484 Barrack Road, and I'm happy to address any questions or items of clarification from Council.
Thank you, Denise. Council, do you have any further questions? Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Landry, for your excellent presentation. Certainly, I know my concern would be, and I know the residents' concern would be, you want to start off on the right foot, I believe, with the neighbors. The developer you represent has a good reputation in Port Colborne. However, I must say, I think that before going any further, these people need to know what you want to build in behind them. And I understand that you may not have to for the purposes of consent, but I think, not knowing how many units there, height, a lot of things, isn't going to build a foundation whereby neighbors are going to just acquiesce to some zoning changes when there's not enough meat here on the bone. And to not know what your intentions are to build back there, I think is going to put up some roadblocks, certainly with, I presume, other members of council, vis-a-vis parking, vis-a-vis traffic study and the use of Barrack Road, lots of things. So whilst this is maybe more of a statement, I would ask then that you go back to the developer that you represent, and I'd like to hear some more before we come back to a public meeting, or before we come back to a council meeting, on what the real intentions are in terms of the level of density. We all know that's a huge issue. Many developers today are maxing out what they can, reducing parking, asking for increase in heights. We've seen other developments that have started in Port Colborne with monster homes in them looking into backyards. And I just suggest that you come back with some more information. I don't know if you'd like to respond to that or not.
Yeah, for sure. I can respond to that. So through the Deputy Mayor to the Councillor Bruno. Right now, we're in the process of acquiring the property. We need to go through this minor rezoning and the severance in order for my client to purchase that vacant land in the center. As you thought, the intent is that the woodland would be protected and would remain in the ownership of the church, as that is what they have acquired in terms of their agreement to purchase to purchase the property. So we're really still in the beginning phases of looking at the property in terms of what would make the most sense. We have a number of studies per the pre-consultation requirements in order to satisfy before we really can put something exact on the property. The client I'm working with is intending on doing is intending on doing rental type units on the site. That's what they've been focusing on lately, and their intent is to continue with this property as rental. But in terms of exactly what the built form is going to look like and what we're proposing, that'll be coming kind of future once we've worked through that process and once my client owns the property. So we needed to go through this process, not change the actual institutional zoning on the parcel, but just establish a lot frontage and a lot area so that we can proceed with our next steps.
That's all I have for now.
Any other councillors have any questions? Councillor Bogart?
It's not so much a question, it's more just a comment, I suppose. It's I understand Councillor Bruno's remarks, but as it pertains to this application, it's just a zoning bylaw amendment in regards to institutional, and there's no residential zoning being applied at this time. So given that there's no real development at this time, I think a lot of those comments would be addressed in the future application that is to come, whether that be through the consent process or the future zoning bylaw amendment process. So I don't think there's really any reason to hinder this at this time. So I'm fine with seeing it come forward at a reasonable time.
Thank you, Councillor Bogart. Councillor Bodnar, do you have any comments? No. Okay. Councillor Danch?
Hi, Denise. It's been a while. Nice to see your face again. You said the lots were going to be 15 meters wide?
No, through the deputy mayor to the councillor, we had to establish what we call a minimum lot frontage. And so what we did was we looked at the three proposed parcels and we looked at what the smallest lot frontage is. And so if you look on the smallest parcel in the south, which is the wood lot, it's got a frontage of 51 meters. So we've applied for a minimum lot frontage of 50 meters. And it's really just to establish these three parcels. If in the future we do intend on like subdividing the parcel in the middle, then we'd have to go through the rezoning and establish what those frontages would be.
So right now you don't have any idea on what the depth of the properties are going to be?
Well, through the deputy mayor to the councillor. So there's an opportunity to either develop the parcel as a plan of subdivision, meaning that we would get access, we'd need access through Barrack Road with a municipal right of way, and then you could chop up the parcel through a plan of subdivision. My client does like the rental, so there's an opportunity just to develop the property as rental units and keep it as one parcel. And not subdivide it up, especially if they don't intend on selling it. So there's different ways that we can proceed with developing it.
Okay, we'll see what happens as we move along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open up any delegations to the public. Is there anybody here who would like to speak? Okay. So we'll just need you to state your name and your address, please.
I'm Louis Serlo. I live at 446 Barrack Road. I've been there for 36 years now. Parcel behind me has been open since then. It's kind of a sad day in our view that it's going to be developed back there, and it's not even telling us what they're developing it into. They're talking about rental, they're talking about putting houses. Nobody knows what's going on, for one thing. And another thing is too, it's like you want to build, you want to keep building places in Port Colborne and everything else, but we have no hospital anymore. It's going down the drain. And they're talking about the future of they're going to build. When's the future? How many years down the road? Like, we need these answers. And there's vacant property everywhere else in Port Colborne. They're still building up behind Apollo. They're developing off of Elm Street and Steel Street in behind there. By Canadian Tire now, they're developing back there. I mean, where are the animals going to go and everything else? Like, I don't see deer in my backyard anymore. And because they ripped out Canadian Tire, all that woodlot there. So that's another thing there. And I know we mentioned about traffic. Traffic is picked up like crazy on Barrack Road. It's crazy. And now I've asked for sidewalks years ago when I had kids. Now you're going to put a development there. Now you're going to put sidewalks in. So now I got to take care of that. I'm in an older age now. I don't want to take care of sidewalks anymore. So, you know, I don't need this behind me. And what else in there? There's other things about we heard something about there's bats or something in the used to be open behind Canadian Tire. Now they've moved over to our area too, which I don't know if they're supposed to be rare bats or something like that. And so what's going to happen with that now too? Like, we have to look into that study. And the archaeological too. When my son was younger too, we used to go out there and we used to collect fossils. So there is stuff out there, but people have to look, right? That's all we have to do. And another thing too is, I read it in the paper too, and this is probably why another reason this is happening too, is because we're getting $4.3 million boost for housing in Port Colborne. So there you go too. Well, you know what? I think Port Colborne's fine the way it is. And I think all these people here think Port Colborne's fine the way it is. We're a little bit done with development. Keep it, I mean, I know you have to develop, you have to bring people in, but how about bringing industry in? Lower our taxes that way, instead of bringing houses in where our taxes aren't going down, because now it's going to be more infrastructure, so our taxes are going to go back up again. So we're still paying. So that's basically all I have to say. So we'd like to know more. We'd like to know what's going to go behind us, for one thing, for sure. And this woman or somebody said something about they usually just tear down or looking for lots or commercial property. Well, that's a residential house that you want to rip down, which has asbestos siding on it and everything else. And we know that because we lived there for so long. And we've talked to the residents that were there before. So it's going to be a big job. So we'll see what happens. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, come on in. Yep. We'll just need you to state your name and address when you get to the podium.
Mr. Gerald Sebastiani, live at 428 Barrack Road. I've been there about 14 years now. We moved there because I should never believe real estate people that that land could never be touched because it was protected land, but never mind. The lady that developed, that owned that whole land from 58 to Elm Street, okay, she told me that there's family buried out there, okay? Now, that house was put there for a reason, to block everything off. The church's been trying 17 years, and that lady basically told her, no, it's not going to happen. And everything Mr. Zerlo said is true. Like, I don't know about you, but do you want cars driving right down your fence line where you have to sit? We put a lot of money into our house, as these residents did, and we take care of them, okay? Now, to have this change because some developer wants to who's done nothing, he's got no heritage here, wants to come in and do this. And another thing is, why do we have to use that piece of land there? The church, why can't they use their parking lot, their property? Because they're the only ones that are going to profit off this. Okay? I'm not getting no money. These people aren't getting no money. The church is getting money. Okay? And they've been trying for a lot of years, and they finally found someone that is desperate, wants to dump the property. Okay? So why should all these people suffer for that? Okay? And being a good citizen, I was at Canal Days, and Dunshire had a booth there. So I stopped in. I said, I'm interested in buying a house. Sir, this fall we're developing there. So something's going on that maybe you people know, we don't know, but I'd sure like to get it cleared up before it goes too far. Because I've been in construction business developing for 50 years, okay? It's not my first rodeo. So the point is, why would someone already put money out for a place hasn't even been rezoned yet? And they say future, and if they get it rezoned, I know it's a done deal, it's bought. Property's bought, the guy's coming in, and by having that piece of property zoned in with the property there, it's a go. We can't do nothing. And like the rest of it, we want traffic studies. I want an Aboriginal report. There's lots of things. That house to come down, I work in that division. So environmentalists, I can bring them in like nothing. So that's all I really wanted to say is have a good look before you jump to any conclusions, because this has been going on too long. Thank you.
Is there any other residents that like to speak? So just state your name and address when you get to the podium, please.
Hi, thanks. I'm Brian Lofthouse. I live at 450 Northland Ave, so I'm on the other end. Just a quick question of clarification. My property abuts the bush. So am I hearing correct that Christian Life Assembly are going to continue with this rezoning? They're hoping to continue to own that. And is that protected by the city, or is that just theirs and they haven't done anything with it? There's in the picture, anyways. Anybody know? I'm just looking for a clarification.
Through Deputy Mayor to the presenter. Yes, the woodlot is protected by official plan policies, and I think moving forward it will also be protected by zoning policies as well. So that piece, it will stay in the future as a wooded area.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I know. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other residents to speak? You have to come to the you have to come to the podium. Okay. Planning, do you need to conclude? The Development and Government Relations Department Report 2025-145 be received for information. I'd like to take a vote. Can I have a show of hands to move?
Just so the members of the public know, so this is just to receive this report, and then the planning department's going to come back with a further report? Do you know when that might be?
Through Deputy Mayor to the councillor. No, we haven't established timing on that yet. We're still waiting on a few more details from the applicant. But I think, it will likely be this fall where we're coming forward with a recommendation report for the zoning. And it may also be this fall when we're coming forward with a recommendation report to Committee of Adjustment for the consents.
The last thing I wanted to ask, lady in the back put up her hand about noise and that, and so there is a highway there too. So when you come back, Eric, with the report as a result of what you've heard tonight, folks for at least a little while can keep funneling questions into you. Doesn't have to be over tonight, because I think that they may want to huddle and speak about other issues, and I just want them to know that they still have an opportunity, but I know there's going to be a time when you have to write the report.
Through Deputy Mayor to the council, yeah, it's correct. There will come a point where we do have to write the report, but we're open to discuss the application and the report and where we're headed with this application until the day we present that to council. There will be a certain date we'll make available for comments to be included in the report, but certainly beyond that, information received, for example, information that could have been received this afternoon related to tonight's meeting, we're able to present through a verbal update to council. Yeah, so we're open to discussions, and I would encourage anyone who does have questions or does want to speak about this to reach out to the planning department.
I missed a portion here, but we did receive 2 written reports, one from the one that presented or delegated tonight, and another one was submitted to council and the planning department as well. So I just wanted to let you know that we did receive those and have read them. Okay, so in terms of the report, can I get a vote to adopt the report? Sure. Councillors, I can't see. And Beauregard? Yep, okay. So that's carried. Thank you, everyone. The public meeting for 484 Barrack Road is officially closed. Again, if you have any other comments, they can be directed to the Clerk's Division or the Planning Department. The Clerk's Division email address is cityclerk@portcolborne.ca. There are no procedural motions, no information items. The next is bylaw. So 7.1 is the bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the city of Port Colborne. Can I please get a mover and a seconder to pass the confirming bylaw? Councillor Bodnar. Sure. Councillor Bruno, second. That the bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the city of Port Colborne at its public meeting on August 19th, 2025 be enacted and passed as presented. At this time, we will adjourn the meeting. So I want to thank the 4 councillors for attending so that we could hold this public meeting, and we had quorum, so I appreciate that, and thank you to the public for attending as well.